Well, it's 8 a.m. India win a lot of awards, and like always in the last couple of days, we have had a Shivam Dube story. We have yet another Shivam Dube story. It's 8 a.m. Welcome back to Wake Up Cricket, powered by Pavilion Picks. This is where you catch up on all the cricket that you've missed. Even though there was no international cricket yesterday, there's still a lot that's gone on in the world of cricket. Now, before we get into it, hit the subscribe button, like, share, and all of that. Let's get into it.
Well, by now it is established beyond doubt that Ashwin is obsessed with Shivam Dube. We'd get
Yes.
to that, but let's get started with Indian women. India dominate women's honors at ESPNcricinfo Awards 2025. Players from the Indian women's team swept all the women's categories at the ESPNcricinfo Awards 2025, capping a remarkable year that included the maiden ICC Women's Cricket World Cup triumph. Jemimah Rodrigues won the Women's ODI Batting Award for her unbeaten 127 against Australia in the World Cup, while Deepti Sharma claimed the ODI bowling honour for a decisive 5 for 39 in the final against South Africa. Harmanpreet Kaur was named Women's Captain of the Year after leading India to the World Cup title and white ball series wins in England. She also won the Women's T20 League Batting Award for a match winning 66 in the Women's Premier League final for Mumbai Indians women against Delhi Capitals women. Among other winners, Smriti Mandhana took the Women's T20I Batting Award for 112 against England women's team, while young pacer Sri Charani won both the Women's T20I Bowling and Debutant Awards. In the men's category, Aiden Markram was named the Test batting winner for his 136 in the ICC World Test Championship final against Australia, while Mitchell Stark earned the Test Bowling Award for his 7 for 58 in the Ashes. Varun Chakravarti won the Men's ODI Bowling Award for 5 for 42 against New Zealand, while Kuldeep Yadav claimed the Men's T20I Bowling honour for his 4 for 30 against Pakistan in the Asia Cup final.
Well, it's good to see the Indian women's players winning so many awards and getting recognition for everything that they have done in the last year. Funnily enough, I mean, as much as Jemmy won the award for the obvious innings that you obviously saw, the semi-final of the World Cup, it's very interesting to me that Smriti Mandhana didn't really win any ODI awards when she had a stellar ODI season last year, where she was one of the highest scorers, one had the most centuries she's ever had in a calendar year. She scored the most amount of runs for the Indian team in the ODI format and so many more things in the ODI format. Yet she won for an innings that she played in a format that you would think is one of her weakness, the T20I format. And but again, happy for her because this is what the women's team needs, right? And as much as I keep saying this, sometimes it frustrates me because a lot of people keep talking about this is what the women's team needs. Hell, they won a whole World Cup and we're still looking for broadcasters to cover matches and cover series for them. When they went to play down under in Australia, we were talking about this off air, but we were talking about how there were no Indian broadcasters in Australia when they were taking on in such iconic series, also because it was Alyssa Haley's last series. Well, all that being said, it's good to see the Indian women's players getting all these recognition, getting all these awards, and they've done extremely well last year across formats, and even this year they've done well. They've beaten Australia in the T20I series. Yeah, the ODI and the Test series didn't go as well planned, but we have the T20 World Cup coming up. So if anything, winning the T20 series is becomes all the more important.
And what becomes all the more important that we arrive to the most important story
Yes.
of the morning, which is on Shivam Dube. Shivam Dube sneaks on to train to reach Mumbai after World Cup win. Shivam Dube had an unusual journey home after helping India win in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, traveling incognito on a train from Ahmedabad to Mumbai. With flights fully booked after the final at the Narendra Modi Stadium, Dube, along with his wife and a friend, boarded the Ahmedabad Mumbai Sayaji Express in the early hours of March 9th to get home quickly to his children. To avoid attention, Dube wore a cap and a mask and hid under a railway blanket on the top berth of the AC three-tier coach throughout the journey. Even when the ticket checker asked about the name of the ticket, his wife quickly dismissed the idea that it could be the cricketer. The all rounder completed the trip without being recognized but needed police assistance after arriving in Mumbai, where officers escorted him safely out of the station. Just hours earlier, Dube had played a key role in the final against New Zealand, smashing an unbeaten 26 of 8 balls as India posted a massive total and sealed a 96-run victory. He finished the tournament with 235 runs at a strike rate of 169.06.
I love how this story of Shivam Dube going on train is so fitting to the narrative in the last couple of years that we've talked about here. The social media is talking about him, how he's such an underrated player that he when he performs for the team doesn't really make headlines. And the same thing, right? He wins a whole goddamn World Cup, yet the next day he's not taking a flight, which he had an option. He did talk about how the flight was either very late or he didn't get flight tickets, either or something like that. It wasn't on time, some either along those lines, and so he thought the fastest way to go is to just take a train. I mean, he also contemplated the road travel, but he decided to take a train instead. And I think it's just fitting with the narrative of Shivam Dubey that's been going on about in the last couple of years, not years, the last couple of days. And even the ticket TC not being able to recognize Shivam Dubey and his wife just playing it off. I think it's just great. I think this is why the Shivam Dubey narrative is so nice, and I like this. I like how these Indian players, because at this point, not a lot of Indian players go under the radar, especially if you're in the World Cup winning squad, especially if you've contributed in some form. And for him to be able to do this, it's great. It's the reverse MS Dhoni, where MS Dhoni started off in the train station and then went to play for the Indian team. Now we have Shivam Dube playing for the Indian team and now traveling by train. I think it's great. I think it's very poetic. Megha, don't you agree? I think the Shivam Dube story can never end.
Shivam Dube, the man, the myth, the phenomena. But a lot of these Mumbai cricketers, they've grown up traveling in local,
True,
albeit this
that's
is
true.
not a local, and they've seen a life of a lot of struggle simply because of the fact that in Mumbai, even if you have decent income, the life is very difficult because there's so many people jostling for the resources, and that's probably the reason why they get hardened, and that's why you hear the
True,
word
true,
kharoos
true.
associated with the cricketers coming from Mumbai, and they're very unflappable that ways. So yeah, the strange journey, as long as he wasn't recognized, good for him. And yeah, not MS Dhoni reverse, because we've seen in that movie he'd wear a helmet and move around
It's
with
true.
with his fiance or girlfriend, and
Mm.
to not be recognized. So Indian cricketers do that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Corruption charges. What more to say on that story? Corruption charges. Javon Searles and two others suspended over corruption charges. Javon Searles, the Titans team owner Chittaranjan Rathore, and team official Trevon Griffith have been provisionally suspended from all cricket after being charged with breaches of anti corruption codes linked to the 23-24 BIM 10 tournament in Barbados. The charges were brought by International Cricket Council and Cricket West Indies under their respective anti corruption codes. The alleged offences relate to attempts to fix or improperly influence matches in the BIM 10 tournament. Searles faces four charges under the CWI code, Rathod three, while Griffith has been charged with four offences under the CWI code and an additional charge under the ICC code for allegedly obstructing the anti corruption investigation. The case is a part of a wider probe that earlier saw Aaron Jones charged with multiple breaches of the ICC and CWI anti corruption codes. All three individuals have 14 days from March 11 to respond to the charges.
Yeah, it's I'm not. So there are three codes that they did breach. It's an article that you can go through. I don't know how okay it is for me to talk about it because all of this is still alleged or
Yeah.
allegations because it's still under investigation and there's still a lot going on. So let's just talk in a very broad point of view. It still surprises me that around the world there's still cases of match fixing that goes on, or even the idea of fixing matches when you're playing franchise tournament. There's so much money involved, and of course not a lot of players get that much amount of money, and not a lot of players are able to play in different franchise tournaments. But the idea of tournaments like these, which are financially might just be smaller or even like by stature wise, it still surprises me that there's a lot of idea of match fixing that goes on about. And whenever I read this, there's a bit of a heartbreak as a fan in me, knowing that people still succumb to this. And I'm sure there are multiple reasons, and I'm not making excuses for any of them, but there might be reasons for them to do this, valid for their own sake, but not valid from the outside, of course, because you're still doing it for the game and you're doing it against the integrity of the game. But yeah, just the idea, whenever I read stuff like this, it just breaks my heart. It takes me back to the early 2000s. Not that I have any memory of it, but the early 2000s, where the Indian cricket team were in shambles because of a lot of match fixing allegations. And I'm glad we've come out of it. And then we had the IPL match fixing scandal, and I'm glad we've come out of that. It's been 10 years almost. But yes, whenever I see this in the modern age, it just breaks my heart a little bit. Megha, what do you think of it as a cricket fan, and when you read news related to match fixing and all of that?
You do get disillusioned, but there's also the fact that a lot of these tournaments, what is the ROI for, say, the team owners? It
True,
is
true,
absolutely not justified. We're not trying to cover diverse perspectives over here, but probably one of the reasons why they do it is because they do not see tangible ROI from the money that they invest in the franchise. And you see that, right? Even in the story, when I first read it, there were three people from the same franchise
yeah,
that were involved. So it's
true,
generally a nexus that gets formed at
true.
different levels. All right, final inspections is our next story, which is to do with Chinnaswamy Stadium, which is set for final inspection before IPL 2026. The M. Chinnaswamy Stadium is scheduled for a final inspection on March 13 by an expert committee appointed by the government of Karnataka before giving its approval for the venue to host matches in the Indian Premier League 2026 season. Earlier, permissions granted for the matches at the venue were conditional, but the Karnataka State Cricket Association remains confident that the stadium will meet all requirements after a series of infrastructure upgrades. Renovations began in December after former Indian seamer Venkatesh Prasad was elected president of the KSCA. The association has also said that the earlier safety concerns that led to the state electricity regulator cutting off power to the venue last July have now been addressed. RCB are set to begin their home campaign at the stadium against Sunrisers Hyderabad on March 28th before hosting Chennai Super Kings on April 5th. The franchise will play 5 home matches at the venue this season, with 2 additional home games scheduled at the Shahid Veer Narayan Singh International Cricket Stadium in Raipur. By the way, going back to the previous story, match fixing is simply not cool. But we move on to the next story. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, we weren't justifying it. We were
Yeah.
just looking at why would they do it in the first place. But yeah, it's first of all to see Venkatesh Prasad, the chairman of KSCA, is in itself a great thing because I feel like people from Karnataka we've been longing for, and I don't want to say the previous chairman and the presidents were bad, but we've been longing for a prominent cricketer. And to see Venkatesh Prasad, first of all, when he was supposed to be elected and was there was rumors that he was trying to stand and be in that position. There was a lot of excitement, and then finally, when he did become the president, there was so much happiness amongst the cricketers because you know Venkatesh Prasad already if you're a local, but you know what he's going to stand for, especially as the president of the KSA. You know how much Karnataka cricket means to him, and you already knew the second that he becomes the president, he will make sure that Chinnaswamy is back at it. That it's going to have matches. He has a long history with Chinnaswamy. He's of course played a lot of matches there. He's not just for the Indian team, but even while growing up. But you knew the second he becomes the president of the KCA, he will get Chinnaswamy back, and that's why a lot of people were happy too. And that's exactly what's happened. He's brought back the stadium alive. He will make sure that the stadium is not just fit for the IPL, but in the next couple of years, it gets international matches back. And yeah, this I forgot what the word is. Inspection. I was going to say suspection. The inspection, the stadium's going to clear through. It's just sake for the sake of inspection, but it's going to clear through. I'm hoping that eventually all the matches come back to Chinnaswamy and all RCB matches can happen in Bangalore. But we already know that a lot of these matches will take place in Raipur this season at least. But yeah, from the next season, all the matches are back in Chinnaswamy. I'm just glad that Venkatesh Prasad this is the president. I'm just glad that Chinnaswamy is back at it. Yeah, this inspection will they'll get through it easy. There's no worries there.
Probably the reason why you carried the word suspection is because the story that we had.
Yes.
We become very fishy now. All right, then. So, moving on to the next story, which is on Abrar Ahmed becoming the first Pakistani player signed by IPL own 100 team. Abrar Ahmed was bought by Sunrisers Leeds for 190k pound at the inaugural men's the 100 auction in London, becoming the first Pakistan player signed by an Indian owned franchise in the tournament. The franchise, previously known as London Superchargers, was taken over by the Sun TV network last year. The group also owns Sunrisers Hyderabad and Sunrisers Eastern Cape. Abrar's signing came after a bidding battle with Trent Rockets and ended speculations over whether IPL linked franchises would avoid Pakistan players at the auction. Early in the day, Usman Tariq became the first Pakistan player sold, joining Birmingham Phoenix for 140k pound. England all-rounder James Coles was the biggest buy of the morning, securing a 390k pound deal with the London Spirit after a bidding war involving multiple teams. Among other major deals, Joe Root was signed rather by Welsh Fire for 240k pound, while Aidan Markram was the highest paid overseas player, earning 200k pound with Manchester Supergiants.
If you watch the auction, the way Sunrise went about it was very interesting because they were clearly interested in Adil Rashid for starters because he says he is from England. He's not an overseas. He's from the same national, and that's exactly what Daniel Vittori did talk about post. I think post auction or there was a mid break where he was talking about how they were looking for Adil Rashid first because he is from England and you don't need to play an overseas player and all of that, and that was confirmed when you looked at the auction. Sunrisers were clearly interested in Adil Rashid, but Abrar's pick wasn't a surprise again because of the way he's been going about in the international circuit. And same, Daniel Vittori echoed that in the press conference where he did talk about. First of all, it was great to see that where he did address the elephant in the room. He did talk about how teams didn't talk about which player from which country to buy or not to buy. Of course, they would want to buy players who are playing for England and from England because it just makes it easy for the team and the balance of the team. But apart from that, if you're not getting players from the country itself, they didn't talk about buying or not buying Pakistani players. That wasn't a conversation at all. So that was good to see him addressing that. And that was good to see, especially because of all the speculation leading up to the auction. And then he did talk about how he spoke to a couple of Australian players about Habrar and how he is difficult to pick. And he realized that not a lot of England players, especially the local players, have seen him in the first place. So, if not for Adil Rashid, who has been by far one of the best leg spinners in the world out there, especially in the T20 format in the last couple of years, Abrar was an obvious pick. They did have other couple of options, but mainly it was Adil Rashid or Abrar. And it was good to see. I mean, you would want to see Pakistani players being bought and being as and played in all around the world, and just because it's an Indian owned franchise, I would have hoped that not to be a thing, and it didn't become a thing, and I was glad it wasn't a thing. Mega, do you have anything to say about how good this was to see Pakistani players being brought by the Indian franchise even after all the speculation?
Well, after all the speculations, a Pakistani player was bought by an Indian franchise, as in a franchise owned by an Indian
Yeah,
owner. But there's also a lot of outrage that has followed, and the outrage would obviously continue in the coming days. It's also
yeah,
interesting that mention of James Coles, who's a very talented, promising player, just 21 years of age, and is rising fast up the ranks. Has in fact almost 5 years of first class experience already,
yes,
and plays for Sussex. And although for how long we're not really sure, and is a top order batter, has scored truckloads of runs, has contributed with the wicket as well, so certainly a promising talent to watch out for. But yeah, finally the speculations come to an end. And also the fact that with, like we mentioned earlier, in the previous editions of the 100 as well, there weren't a whole lot of Pakistani players. So even if
true.
they hadn't Sunrisers hadn't picked up Abrar Ahmed, I don't know what could have been made out of it, because
That's true. Yeah.
it would have just been speculation that
Yep.
probably that's the reason or whatever. Moving
That's
on to
true.
the meme, and that's pretty comprehensive because we're talking about some of the top notch marquee teams in the IPL.
Yeah, so this is why we decided to start the fan wars. Of course, it would have already started, but this is where we compared the three big teams to for starters. We talk about the Chennai Super Kings, Mumbai Indians, and the Royal Challengers Bangalore.
Aha.
You can see how much I love this
Mm.
RCB team. But yeah, this is them being students in class and thinking about how they would possibly be. Chennai Super Kings being a batch topper, used to be consistent, now going through a crisis, of course. And they were once caught cheating in a test because of which they were not even in the class. And then you have Mumbai Indians, of course. The dad owns the coaching institute, currently going through a rough phase as well. And daddy issues, if you can call it that. Other students accuse him of using his dad's power to score good in tests. That's always been a thing with Mumbai Indians and Ambani and all of that. And then the RCB does everything except study, always active on social media, celebrates 100 marks in a basic math test like he has smoked the exam. This comes from the fact that every time they qualify, they celebrate as if they won the IPL. Now, I have nothing against that, but a lot of people seem to have a problem with that. Crashed the global economy after the acting exam last year. Well, you know what happened last year. Parents
Mm.
showcased the achievements of his of their prodigy, I'm using sister as is, because the RCB women's team have been far more successful than the men's team in such a short period of time. So good on them. But this is exactly what the analogy of them being students versus being the IPL team has been. And I agree with most of it. A lot of people don't like the RCB team, and I can see why. But a lot of people don't like a lot of other teams, and I can also see why. I'll tell you what, I don't support any team. I'm a good diplomat. I'm a good journalist. I look at Indian players in each team and hope that they perform well. Except when RCB loses, well, I'm a little glad. There's a part of me that's a little more happy, is what I'll tell you. Megha, what did you make of the three analogies of them as students and IPL teams?
RCB fans, what would you award me if I were to give away Ashwin's home address? But yeah, so RCB were initially owned by the Kingfisher Airlines or the Kingfisher
True.
Group in general, and
Yep.
their tagline was "a king of good times." So probably
Hmm.
they are still in the after effect of that. They are the king of good times. They celebrate well, and there was a time when after four back-to-back losses, when they finally won a game, they celebrated like they lifted the title without the
Yep.
trophy. But so yeah, they celebrate, and that's pretty cool. Were you rage baiting? Because that's a term I recently learned on Instagram, and I just wanted to use that here just to show that I'm aware of the Insta lingo. I hope I've used it correctly. But yeah,
Yeah.
overall, fair enough, interesting. Uh, I'm hoping you'd come up with more such for other teams as well, and
Oh
that was fun.
yes. Yes. Oh, I haven't come up with it. This isn't me being creative at all. I picked it up from Reddit. Every meme that you've seen in the last couple of weeks, last couple of days, is all from Reddit. So credit where it's due. But
But
yes,
it's
we will
almost
have.
like it's you, right? Considering
True.
how it conveys what
True.
you genuinely feel.
That's true. That is true. And that's exactly what you get at 8 a.m. every day on Wake Up Cricket powered by Pavilion Picks. We will continue with the IPL fan wars, team wars, fan wars. If you're a fan, then yeah, then the war, sure. And we will have this going on every single day for every single team and have an analogy of how they would be a student in the class. But we'll also talk about every other thing that happens in the world of cricket. And for that, you have to tune in at 8 a.m. or subscribe to us. So if you haven't done that already, do subscribe, like, share, and everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 a.m. Oh, we'll see you guys on Monday actually at 8 a.m. See you guys. Peace.